Welcome back. We just learned about the password API and how this API allows us to trust no one. That is, we only trust ourselves and we're only going to give the bits of information that we feel comfortable to the API so that it gives us a response with some data that we can then calculate on our own machines that are hypothetically more secure. So what we did here is that instead of giving the entire hash of our password, we just give a little bit of it, the first 5 characters. Now, they have close to 600 million passwords in their database. And the website now maybe just knows that we're part of several hundred people that have a similar starting hash, but they're never going to know our password. But with this response data, we can now check our full hash to see if the password has ever been pwned or has ever been hacked. So let's start writing our program. Because ideally, in this response, I now have maybe several hundred lists of these hashes that I can check against. Let's think about what we want to do. So ideally, we have, let's say, a function. And this function will be the request API data, which is what we've done here. So we'll move that down here once we're ready. And here, we'll give it the query characters. So that is, we're going to give it this hashed version of our password. So this is going to be a function that for now we'll just pass, but this is going to request our data and give us a response. Next, with this response, we actually want to check. So we can say that we want to check the pwned API, check, and in here, we'll give our password. That is our actual password. In our case, it'll be password123. And in here, we want to do some sort of a check. We want to say check password if it exists in API response from up here. So for now, we'll just pass that. So let's work on the first one. That is request API data. We've already done some of this over here, right? I'm actually going to move this code up here. Make sure we have the padding. Now in here, instead of this string, I'll actually give the query character that we'll call the function with so that it's dynamic. And again, we'll request the URL, we'll have the response, and in here, we'll do a check. We'll say if response.status, because remember, we can check our response. If the status is 200, or in this case, let's say if the status is not equal to 200, in that case, let's just raise an error. So I'll say raise, we'll do a runtime error, and we'll say, well, let's use an F string, and we'll say error, fetching, and then we'll give it the status code. So that is response.status. Oh, and actually this is status code. So let's just do status code here. And then we'll just say check the API and try again. All right, so this should be our error if we make a mistake. Let's just test that out. I'm going to just, let's do an API that doesn't exist. So I just written some gibberish here. If I save and run this, well, I have to actually run this piece of code. So let's just do request API data, and the query character is going to be 1, 2, 3. And you know what? This is going to error out whether I do that or not. So let's just do this because it's not the hash version. And I actually get a Python error of type error. Can only concatenate string, not int. So we can just convert this to a string because remember, we're adding it to the URL here. Again, if we run this, all right, look at that. We've raised a runtime error. We have a runtime error, error fetching 400. check the API and try again. All right, so this part is working. But in this case, if we don't have that error, let's just say that we will return the response. Again, we're just writing small, simple functions. In this case, we just want to request API data. So now we can use it throughout our code. Awesome. Now, this next part is a little tricky because we have to run our password through the SHA-1 algorithm. Luckily, Python has a built-in module for us to do this. So we can actually do import hash lib. As you can see, it's a built-in module. So you can read up more on it if you want. In our case, we're able to do SHA-1 hashing like we did on that website with this library. In here, what we're going to do is, first of all, I want to be able to hash my password. So let's remove the pass here and say SHA-1 password. And we can use the hash lib like this, hashlib.sha1, which is the hashing algorithm we want to use. And this is going to be a little tricky, but you can just read the documentation. I'll just show you how to do it. In our case, we can do password, and we want to encode in UTF-8, which is pretty standard. Actually, you know what? Let me show you what this does. So I'm going to say print, and I'll just do password encode UTF-8. So let's just do that for now. For now, I'm going to comment that out. So I'm going to call pwned API check, and we'll do 1, 2, 3. Let's clear this. I'm going to save and run this piece of code. All right, it's encoded. You see this little B over here in UTF-8. I'll actually show you what happens when we remove the encode after this. Next, when we use the hash lib SHA-1, so let me just copy this. If I just run this, I get a SHA-1 hash object. Now, after this, we can call .hex digest, like so. And if I run this, well, how can we check this? Well, we can go to hashlib and just simply search for hex digest. So in here, at any point, you can ask it for the digest of the concatenation of the data, blah, 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 hex digest. So that doesn't really explain anything for us. Let's just go to the next part and the next part, and there you go, hex digest. It returns a string object of double length containing only hexadecimal digits. This is just something that we need to do in order to convert this object into this hexadecimal string. The next part, in order to agree with the API, is to convert all of this to uppercase. So if I do upper here, and I save and run this again, everything is in uppercase, just like we saw when we looked at SHA-1. So this is just something that, again, you don't really need to know. You just have to, you can Google around and see how to actually use this. Now, let me show you what happens when we don't use UTF-8 encode. So if I just do it like this, and I run this, you see that I get an error. The Unicode objects must be encoded before hashing. So it actually gives you a nice error, and we can just encode it using UTF-8 like that. So this is just the standard. Again, nothing too crazy. You can read up on encoding and UTF-8 if you want on your own. The key here is that by the end of it, we have a SHA-1 password that we can send. So let me just copy all of this. Going to remove the print. And in here, we'll have our SHA-1 password. Awesome. So for now, let's just return this SHA-1 password. And if I run this, well, looks like our code is working. We're not printing anything, but hopefully we are getting this SHA-1 password. Now in the next video, I actually want to try and send this to our API and see what kind of response we get. Let's do that. Take a break. I'll see you in the next one.